how to manifest an SP even when they don't look at you. Welcome to another edition of Manifesting an SP. On my channel, I am Neil Arthos. I am the next Abdullah. And we're going to make you the next Neville Goddard. Now, listen up, guys and gals. Whether it's an SP that is an X, or whether it's an SP of someone you've never even met, the way you manifest an SP is always the same. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you use the same technique, but you got to understand the way the reality works. Whatever happens in your awareness, whatever happens in your mind is what you will see reflected or manifested in your life. If you take a good look right now at your life, everything that you see is simply a reflection, a manifestation of something that you had in your awareness before, also known as an assumption. If you notice in your life that you don't have the dating life that you would like or the money that you like, all of that is a reflection of the awareness that you've assumed before, and now it has to be reflected. How many times do we notice that we're struggling with bills? But if we take a look back at our past, we always had this feeling of lack, of money is hard to get by. Well, most of us, if we're being honest, we have that feeling all the time, especially if we don't know much about the law of assumption or have studied Neville Goddard. And the thing is, all it takes is one time for you to have a thought, and that's all it'll take to manifest. Especially if that thought is rooted in strong conviction, also known as a core belief that you hold. That is why whenever you say to yourself after someone rejects you that, oh, I'm such a loser, I'm so ugly, that's why if you say it once, you will get that reflected a lot more quicker than opposed to you living your life with such low self-esteem, but then you tell yourself for a couple of times, maybe even 100 times, that you are the most attractive person, that you have an abundance of women, that you are the most confident. That's why it'll take longer for more of those positive affirmations to manifest, because you spent the majority of your 20 to 30 years of your life talking shit about yourself. So how do we counteract this? Well, how does manifesting an SP that doesn't even know you come into this? Well, I always like to begin my videos with the core fundamentals, because ultimately I can give you affirmations. I can tell you what to visualize, but it's not going to do you any good if you don't understand the basics. It's not going to do you any good. And you could manifest your SP, right? But then they'll ghost you right away. Or you can get that first date. Heck, you could even get the number, but they'll flake it and you'll never even actually get to see them other than in your damn dreams, right? So first you got to understand how reality works. Just like I told you, whatever you put in your awareness, whatever you have as a core belief, all your assumptions, they're going to be manifested. Okay, now a quick add-on to that fundamental. What I would like to add is that obviously you were not doing a lot of this consciously, right? When you were telling yourself that you're a loser, when you were telling yourself that money was hard to get by, you were not sitting there visualizing, in a yoga stance, trying to visualize your life to suck so bad. Oh, I just hope that I go bankrupt. I can't wait until that woman gives me a restraining order, right? You weren't doing it consciously. And yet you were subconsciously speaking negative about yourself, and that's all it took for you to see that reflected back to you. Well, if you can do these things unconsciously, then imagine the power that you can have when you do these things consciously, right? Because if you do something consciously, you are doing it with more force, with more intention, right? So keep that in mind as we go along. So now that you kind of have a gist of how reality works, all you have to do is do the opposite. Instead of allowing yourself to resonate with this negativity and talking shit about yourself, which has manifested the fact that you are not seeing the results in your dating life, relationship life, romantic life that you want, all you have to do is change the assumptions. Now, maybe you guys have already watched other manifestation coaches and you like some of their visualization techniques or their affirmations, but me, I'm going to give you what has personally worked in my life. And it is what I like to call self-pedestalization. Okay? Now, the basic explanation of what self-pedestalization is they're basically like affirmations, although I don't really like to call them that. But what they are is that you speak about yourself, whether out loud or in your mind, in such an obnoxious, egotistical, narcissistic type of way that it is so staggering to the point where your subconscious has no other choice but to give you some sort of reaction, some sort of feeling, right? I like to say it like this, that the subconscious is like a fat guy who works at the front desk. Okay, I've said this in my other videos. He's always on his phone, he's eating donuts, and the only way that he's going to get off his lazy ass is if a damn bomb explodes, okay? Well, this is the bomb. I want you to start telling yourself shit like, all my SPs need me more than food, water, and drink. All my SPs are flowers in my garden, but I'm the fucking sun, okay? I am their addiction. I am their drug. I am more addicting than morphine, heroin, crystal meth, and cocaine combined. Combined with TikTok. More fucking addicting than that. I want you to go so fucking extreme, because you see, this is what really happens when you say these affirmations. You change your state, okay? Whenever maybe you're having a good day and then all it takes is for that one asshole that you work with to just piss you off, and now everything else changes. Maybe you were excited because you were gonna, I don't know, hang out with some friends later, or maybe you were gonna go home and watch your favorite show or watch the football game, whatever, right? And all it took was that one moment in traffic or that one piece of bad news, and your whole day is ruined. Well, from now on, when you think of moods or mood swings or mood changes, I want you to replace that with state changes, okay? Because that's pretty much exactly what changing your state is. It's not actually that you have to wait till the portal opens and then fucking Doctor Strange is there waiting to take you into another multiverse. No. Okay? I mean, yes, I have said before that changing states is like going to the, a different multiverse, but it is a very clickable thumbnail, okay? Changing your state is basically changing your mood. Because look, when Neville talks about changing your state, another way that he speaks about it is changing your consciousness, right? Well, think about it. What happens when you change your consciousness? You change your consciousness, you start thinking differently. What happens when you think differently? You are led to do different actions because you are getting all these different ideas than you had before. And instead of doing the things that you would typically do when you thought the other way, you are doing different things because now you're seeing it in a completely different light. That is all that changing your state is. Another way I like to think of it is changing your state is changing your set of ideas, okay? Changing your set of thoughts. You are being led in a different direction, right? Or you are given a new set of coordinates, whatever, right? Because whatever you have going on in here is going to affect what you do out here, okay? So how do you change your state, right? Because if you don't change your state to the person that has your SP, the one that doesn't talk to you, that doesn't give you any attention, who might not even know that you fucking exist, the way you do it is, first of all, understanding that you are not the human being that you see in the mirror every single day, okay? You are not the person who works as a software engineer and got his college degree at 18 and that graduated at age 18 and is a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers and listens to Bad Bunny, okay? Maybe you're a Swiftie, okay? Whatever it is, okay? You are not the human being who does all these human things. You are just an eternal being living in a human experience, okay? So this might come as sort of a weird, what the fuck is he talking about type of moment. But you see, this is the bottom line here. If you can actually believe that you are this human being, which I cannot blame you for doing that. I mean, we grew up in a society where we thought that life was a certain way, just like the movies, right? But in reality, there is more than meets the eye here, just like fucking Transformers, right? But you are an eternal being living in a human experience. And if you can believe that you are the human who you see in the mirror every single day when you're brushing your teeth, then gosh darn it, you can believe that you are somebody else for the next 30 years of your life. And who is that somebody else? The version of you who looks the same, but the only difference is that they have the money and the SP. And where do you find that? Right here in your imagination. So if you are not the mind, if you are not the body, you're just the observer or whatever the mind and the body gives you, right? Well, you've been thinking that you are the person that you see with your eyes in the mirror, right? But you're not the body, right? And you're not the mind. But if you can believe what the body was telling you this whole time, why not believe what the mind can tell you too, right? Fair is fair. So why not spend the next 30 years of your life, 30, 60, 70, hopefully a billion years, okay? Why not spend the rest of your life thinking that you're somebody else, but this time someone who you can actually control, somebody who can actually create? Because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The person who you see, the personality The flaws that you see reflected to you, that you see with your own eyes, is simply a reflection of the person that you saw yourself beforehand in your imagination to begin with. You see, that's the kicker. Okay? So why not go in your imagination and create somebody from scratch? Okay? Because whether you are in the manifestation sphere, whether you're in the self-improvement sphere, hell, if you are even in the fucking black pill, red pill sphere, even those guys know that however way you see yourself is going to be reflected out here. Okay? So, number one, go in your imagination, and you do not have to make this some sort of extreme thing. You could be doing this when you're taking a shit on the toilet. You can be doing this right now as you're eating your dinner. You can be doing this in the 5 minutes that it takes for you to get to work. Just simply ask yourself, what would it be like if I looked the same, if I had the same fucking zit on my face that has been there since fucking middle school, but the only difference is that I have the money and the SP? What would my life be like? And before you let me tell you examples, why don't you simply ask yourself your imagination and see what pops up? Because one of the ways I see it is that whenever you ask your imagination questions, whatever it gives you, you shouldn't judge. Because unless it's being interrupted by the ego, and that's another thing, whatever it gives you is coming from your higher self. So you should accept it and see what happens. Just flow with it. Most likely, if you ask yourself, what would your life be like if you had SP? It's not going to be showing you a bunch of negative bullshit and that you are sitting in the corner depressed, doom scrolling all the time. No, you're probably going to have this idea of you in the same outfit, but with a smile on your face, with the dopamine levels at a high. You see, when I started to do this, I noticed that one of the things that my imagination told me is that I was going to have a very similar feeling that I had when I used to watch my favorite shows growing up as a kid. And what's interesting is my imagination gave me this answer right away. And when I look back in my past, I realized that when, for example, I was with my ex, which was my last long-term relationship, and now I've just been dating. But I remember it was a relationship where there would be good days and bad days. The bad days felt like shit, but the good days I remember clearly that I would even, if she was showing me affection, if she was calling me baby and telling me, oh, I love you, I miss you, I actually will go on YouTube and watch Thomas the fucking Tank Engine. I really remember specific moments where I would go home so glad that she gave me a kiss and she hugged me and cuddled with me, and I was simping for her. And I would go home and fucking watch Bob the Builder, man. And you know what? Even I knew, although it was more subconsciously, but I knew that was where my safe place is. And you see, now, because I'm aware that is what is connected to when I feel safe, which could be another way to say that I am in a secure, loving state, a feeling of abundance. I know that I could just try to watch some of my childhood shows and try to capture that feeling and then replay that in my mind when I'm visualizing. So this might not be exactly what you need to do, but this is the type of stuff that happens when you simply ask yourself, what would my life be like if I looked the same, but the only difference is I have the money and the SP? Because what's going to happen is you're going to have ideas, revelations that are going to lead you to do things that the person who has the SP that you want would do. Okay? I'll give you another example. I remember one time in high school, I was in the library. And I always wanted to be the class clown. And I remember one day, I was sitting, I don't know if I was with one of my friends, but I remember at one point I was just sitting alone, and I think maybe one of my friends went to the bathroom or whatever. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I used to see a lot of my interactions with my peers almost like, stand-up sets, right? Where if they didn't laugh at my jokes, I felt like, okay, I wasn't cool enough. So I remember he went to the bathroom, right? And I'm just sitting there in my chair. I even remember where the chair was. Like, if I could go back to the library, I would actually be able to tell you where it was, because I remember this so clearly. I remember telling myself, fuck, man, no one's laughing at my shit. What can I do? I was thinking, of some fucking, maybe some jokes that I heard from this comedian, that guy, or from this scene from a movie. And I don't know what it was that came over me, but I just said, what would I be like if I was the funniest man in the world? What would I be like if Rolling Stone magazine had me on the front cover and they said, this is the funniest #1 comedian on planet Earth today? And I swear to God, within 10 seconds maybe, I had an idea for a joke. My friend came back from the fucking bathroom and I had him cracking up like no tomorrow. I even remember, I went from that chair and we went to the computer chairs, and I just had this fucking aura of me. I had this charisma, and automatically I just didn't even have to think. It just flowed through me. And I remember as I started dating afterwards, because I was probably like, maybe 15 at that time. I didn't start dating until, a little bit later in my life. But I remember even when I was in relationships, before I got into manifestation, I would go back to that moment and I would say, well, damn, if I was able to get some quick results just like that, just by using my imagination, I wonder what I can do here. And I was able to do things like that just by talking to my imagination and asking questions like, what would my life be like if blank? And so that's why I say that you just have to flow with whatever your imagination gives you. And after that, it faded away. But if I knew how manifestation works, I knew that I could just keep asking myself that question. And if you ever notice that you fade away and you get out of that vibe of being in the state, you just got to keep asking yourself that. It's kind of like the way that an actor stays in character. You think he stays in character by focusing on every little movement like a robot? No, he goes to the imagination, because that's where it flows naturally. Okay? Because your body can't do anything without the help and inspiration of your imagination. It can't breathe without your imagination, because it has to know that's its source. Your imagination is not something out of Disneyland. It is simply the awareness that you have in your brain. You could also call imagination your consciousness, really, ultimately, because your consciousness is filled with imagery, but it's also filled with understanding. Your imagination is not just limited to visuals, but it's also audio, it's also words, it's also memories, everything. So when we talk about imagination, I don't want you to just think about some fairy princess with a fucking magic wand, okay? Maybe to make it easier, don't call it your imagination, call it your consciousness, whatever. But whatever the case may be, your body, your actions, your life can't do nothing without your consciousness, okay? So, moving on. Whenever you ask yourself that, and you notice you get out of state, ask yourself that question, and eventually it will get to the point where you don't have to ask yourself that question again, because it'll be kind of like a feeling that you recognize, and all you have to do is search for that feeling and go, okay, there it is. And then you'll know, Okay. I'm back in. I'm back in the state. And keep going to that feeling. Keep going to that feeling. And this is not something that I can, literally explain to you. It's just something that you have to experience yourself, right? I really wish, though, that I could give you the fucking step-by-step detail explanation. But with some things in the manifestation community, there's just things you can't explain. There's just things that you have to literally go into the water and dive deep with the sharks to understand what I'm saying. And this is one of those things. But once you continue to ask yourself, what would the character of my life be like? What would it be experiencing? What would it be thinking if I had the SP and the money? And when you get to that state, you will have a certain feeling, you will have a certain vibe about yourself, and try to remember that vibe. And eventually it will get to the point where you don't have to ask yourself that question again. It'll just be something that you can go into, and eventually it'll become your true reality, right? Now, that's really it. Where people fuck up is they think they have to do more. They think that because they ask their imagination that question and they don't see their SP within 24 hours, then boom, it didn't work. But you see, the only thing that exists is now, not the future, not the present. So if you even tell yourself that my SP is so in love with me right now, so much that we are in the greatest relationship of all time, so much so that People magazine is interviewing us because they want to know all the juicy details. Even if you say that, but you go 2 months without any results, if you said that affirmation, it's already done. The only thing that will get in the way is you. And that is why so many people give up, because they think that it has to come as quick as the guy's success story that they read on fucking Reddit. Okay? Just because it worked for him, it doesn't mean that it has to work, and it can only work the same way. If not, then manifestation is fake. No. Because another thing too is, if you really look at most of the success stories, you're going to realize that when they manifest their SP, they want to manifest them in a marriage. But if you really look at the success story, they only got a text back, or they just started talking with their SP and they got on the first date. But in reality, their end goal was marriage. And you read the story, and if you really sift through, you don't see no fucking engagement ring. Okay? So if they manifested their SP to text them, but they didn't get their end goal, then that means that they didn't actually manifest the completion of that manifestation. They manifested movement, which of course that could still mean that it's a success story. But when they say that they manifested in 24 hours, they didn't actually manifest the end goal in 24 hours. They got movement in 24 hours. And the thing is that you could be getting movement, but you might not even recognize it because you're too busy focused on, well, how come they're not kissing me yet? But in my experience, I've had manifestations that took over a year, but the results came right away, right? I didn't get the relationship till much later on, but within a few days, they started acting differently. They started looking at me when they typically would not even look my fucking way, look my direction. All of a sudden, there was a different energy around them, almost like if I was in the presence of a different person. Now, they weren't kissing me, they weren't telling me they loved me, but you could tell something was different. And that's what I'm talking about, is you guys are over here thinking that just because you don't see the exact end scene here in the 3D, that it hasn't moved. That's why I really like, I'm going to shout out a manifestation coach out here, Joseph Alai. He talks about this a lot, where if you see 1 or 2 signs, just like the Bible talks about 1 or 2 signs, then that is confirmation that it's on its way. Whether it's on its way in 2 days, 2 months, 2 fucking years. But the point is you should get to the point where you trust in this so much, you love yourself so much, you put yourself on the pedestal so much, that by the time it comes, you already have been enjoying life so much that it's almost like, well, of course it's here. And you know what? I'm okay whether I have it or not. Okay? So, as a review, understand how reality works. Everything that you see in your 3D where you don't have SP is a reflection of your past assumptions. So all you got to do is reverse the tables and do it in your favor. And the quickest way to do that is to put yourself on the pedestal and to manifest you. You are the specific person. You are the main character of your life. Put yourself on the pedestal. Say that all the SPs have a life-size poster on their wall of you that they pray and bow down to every single night. Say that you are the most important human being that ever walked on this earth. Whether you are eating, sleeping, drinking, taking a shit, brushing your teeth, picking your nose. You do everything with perfection. Everybody looks at you and waits for your responses like you are a motherfucking celebrity. The more you keep talking about yourself like that, the more you don't even have to see your SP to understand that you're great, because you are telling yourself that even the way that you stand waiting in line at the DMV is like the stature of a fucking god. Okay? So when you put yourself on the pedestal like that, your subconscious has no other choice but to give you this feeling. And whenever you have a feeling like that, it impresses your subconscious to the point where it has to reflect in some sort of fashion. No, you might not turn into an actual god of fucking thunder and have superhuman abilities, but your subconscious knows what you're doing. Okay? What it's going to do is it's going to reflect in some way the same feeling that those affirmations give you. And I guarantee you those affirmations don't give you anything negative. Okay? And then in regards to your imaginal acts, I would say you could develop a scene where you are with your SP. The point about imaginal acts is you don't want to go overboard. You don't want to make these things too difficult. The I can't even speak. The shorter the better. The simpler the better. Imagine yourself in an imaginal act with your SP, but make sure that it's not a text. Make sure that it's not a first date. Make sure it's the end result, the wall that you finally want to hit, okay? Make it as natural as possible to the point where you feel like, okay, yeah, this is something that could happen. And if it's something, if you're trying to manifest a situation where it feels too out of reach, well, try your best to make it natural, okay? And really try to make sure that it's in first person, because the thing is we live life in the 3D in first person. So that is the most natural scene that you can have, because like I said, the more natural you make it, the better. So make it first person. And ask your imagination, what would my life be like if I had the money in SP, but everything else was the same, right? Because to be honest, if you start saying, well, I think I need to go to the gym more, I think I need to have more money. Well, I did say about having the money, but if you just want to focus on SP, then you could say, well, I'm still making, shit money at the grocery store, but I still have SP, right? Well, if you say that, your imagination is going to give you the version of yourself that looks very close to what you are today, but has SP, and therefore you will get SP quicker because you don't have to do any change in your physical appearance. Does that make sense? So the best way to do it is to not make any changes other than whatever you want, whether that's SP or the money. And when you do that, your imagination has no other choice but to give you inspirations. If you do this naturally, not try to force anything, not try to say, well, what if I do this? And if I carry the 5 and add E equals MC squared? No, if you just flow with it and allow your imagination to lead you, okay, guide yourself by the Spirit, be guided by the Spirit. If you allow yourself to be guided by the Spirit, then you will walk in that imagination. You will walk as that character. And whether it's in 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, it will happen. The only one who will get in the way is you. Okay? And don't go on Reddit. Don't listen to success stories and say, well, damn, this guy got it and he was blocked on all platforms. Yeah, but did he get the end goal in 24 hours? No. Okay? And if you were to get an update on that guy's life, he might not have actually gotten the marriage until 2 years later. So that's that should tell you, like, okay, well, there's a possibility that mine can come 2 years later too. So don't focus on other people, because you will only reflect more lack, because you're looking at what they have and telling yourself that you don't have it. Okay, so create a quick scene, put nothing in your awareness but self-pedestalization, and stay in the state by asking yourself, what would the person that looks like me, that talks like me, that has the ugly mole behind their neck, what would their life be like if the only difference is they have the SP? Okay, I'm making another Avengers Endgame here, folks. I am Neil Larthos, the next Abdullah. You are the next Neville Goddard. This is all that the I'm Awareness had to say. And I know you're going to be okay.